So, welcome to today's special episode of the Sacred We podcast, where Mike and I dive into conscious relationship and conscious parenting together. And today I'm doing a solo podcast here with a beautiful mentor and teacher of mine, Beth Sutton. And it's really cool how she came into my world. I started in the Slocan Valley bumping into these kiddos that were so vivacious and alive and in their bodies and present. And I started to notice this and feel drawn towards them and their mamas, and started to learn that all of these kiddos were being homeschooled through a program called Enki, which Beth is the founder and now what did you call it?
Developer.
The developer of. And this is how I became aware of it. I've been surrounded by mamas that have been using Enki in how they have been homeschooling. And I got the great privilege this spring of doing the ecosystems course, the intro course with Beth and a beautiful group of students, diving into the Anki worldview. And it was life changing. For me, what was powerful about it is that I have been hungry and looking for a way of orienting around homeschooling that felt grounded in what I already have been practicing. And, I'm a somatic therapist. I've been studying somatics and developmental neuroscience for over 15 years and done a lot of my own work and work with clients in it. And when I discovered Anki and the work Beth's been doing, it was like bumping into something that was all these things that I'd been journeying within myself. And someone had actually taken all these pieces and beautifully woven it over 40 years of experience into this beautiful school, this beautiful gathering of information for kiddos that are in Anki programs, actual school programs, and then also for homeschooling. And the reason that I really wanted to bring Beth on is because through the teachings of Enki, it speaks so beautifully about the way that we develop as human beings, how we grow and evolve and learn in our bodies and in our brains, how to relate with the world and how to grow and learn skills. And what I deeply loved about Enki is it's so relational. Even the word ecosystems, the course, it's a deeply relational program that is really bringing us into the moment experience of relating with the kiddos, with ourselves, with the world around us. And so I'm super excited to have Beth here and to share her deep, beautiful wisdom with all of you. And I have a bunch of questions I want to ask her, but thank you so much, Beth, for being here.
Thank you, Courtney.
And do you want to share a little bit about who you are and what you do? And it doesn't need to be linear or make any kind of just what emerges in you as you introduce yourself to the people listening.
Well, actually, what emerges is always comes off of the person who's asking. So, how I might
Mhm.
introduce myself one moment will be very different from another. But
Uh-huh.
you brought up a couple of things there that are particularly important to how I came to education, how I came to have this unfold. And for some reason, I don't know. I'm going to start way back when I was 17, and I was a dutiful 17-year-old full of angst and what is the meaning of life and why this, and reading all kinds of existentialist philosophy, and pretty depressed. And then I lucked out and I was in a program where I got to apprentice in the Head Start program in New York City. And my heart woke up. And I think that's the most important part for me. The minute I was with the children, my heart was alive. That experience of, and I say heart, but not just emotional, like my whole being was alive with them. And that kind of gave me an anchor for what eventually developed into being Enki Education. Um, so it first led me into the free school movement and then into all kinds of emergent curriculum and Montessori and all kinds of things. But all the while, I was looking for what structures actually help that super aliveness come forward. So, one of the examples I was given by a spiritual teacher of mine was, if you think of a river, if it has no banks, it's a swamp. It needs banks for that full life force to come. So, way back at the beginning, I saw in the free school movement, they were missing the banks. And many places, the banks get so tight the water can't. So, the place where form and freedom are mutually supportive has been my focus these more than 50 years now.
Mm.
That's the place where, what in Enki we use the term inherent vitality. Some people call it Buddha nature, Christ consciousness, inherent being. There's a million names for it. But where the life force that just is what it is to be alive, plant, animal. I believe it's even in rocks and we haven't learned how to hear them, but or we're beginning to
Mhm,
learn.
mhm, mhm.
The force of being comes forward. So Enki has really focused always on what are the structures, including content, that support that bursting river, and what are the ones that cause it to become a swamp or a dried up puddle. And that's going to change. But our what we work on is what are the questions to ask so you keep coming back to that life force.
Mhm. Oh, so good. This was my favorite part of the center of Enki is how the whole practice, the whole course, the way you structured everything was so in this dance of, and it's a dance, it's imperfect, but this dance of how do we be in our own inherent vitality and how are we dancing around with the children, the structure and the flow of what allows their inherent vitality to emerge. And I wonder if you can speak a little more to the art of that, of what that inherent vitality is and how parents can start to attune to it. How can they start to notice that? And the process of starting to move with that with their children. It's almost like this flip in the mainstream of what the goal is, right? The goal is that vitality, not the shutting the vitality down, not I'm going to tell you what your vitality needs to be, but this is the goal is actually welcoming that vitality. I'd love for you to go into that a bit more.
Okay, well, you could take the whole entire training and we'll still be asking that question.
Yeah.
Because I think part of what you said is so true. It's an ongoing dance. But it does have to start with our own experience in ourselves of that vitality that is not dependent on our success and doesn't fall with our failure and isn't best because it's different from someone else or great because it fits in with everybody. It has nothing to do with those. So, what I often say to people is it's a separate plane. So, there's a plane of all these things we can enjoy, things we do well, things we work so hard to accomplish or just to touch. Wonderful, great plane. But that's not the plane of inherent vitality. So, inherent vitality is truly inherent, it is just there. And the question becomes how can we in ourselves notice when we're accessing it? And how can we support the children accessing it? Because it is there, whether we like it or not, whether we ever touch it or not. The image I was given, again, by my spiritual teacher was the sun. The sun is the sun, period. End of story. Nothing to discuss. The sun is the sun. There could be a volcanic or a nuclear winter where you didn't see the sun once for 20 years. The sun is still the sun.
Mhm.
We experience cloudy days all the time. The sun is still the sun. So that's the sense of inherent vitality. It is there. Are you going to support accessing it, connecting to it? And I know your whole thing is about sacred connection, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Right. So that is the ultimate sacred connection. Are we going to connect to that or are we going to block it and be fooled by all kinds of desires and going all over the place? And I would say
Mhm.
I don't know why, but for whatever reason, my focus was always on connecting to that. And what I saw in my many, many years prior to Enki, exploring all these different ways, including Montessori and Waldorf and emergent curriculum and free schools, what I saw was that each of them were trying to do the same thing, but they didn't have the tools. So, what I found is what you started with. when you flip your attention to the ecosystem that connects, everything changes.
Getting chills. Yeah. Yeah. And even as you're sharing, when I think of what Mike and I do for couples, right, when we're working with them, is there's an inherent vitality in the coupleship. There's an inherent vitality that moves through the relationship itself and also through, I think, a parent and a child. And how do we keep tracking for and attuning to that inherent vitality and not losing sight of it when it is a cloudy day or when it's not, we don't quite see it? How do we keep holding that trust and that attuning to that energy?
Gosh, you have so many things in every question.
Yeah.
um, the attuning really has to start with ourselves before the children. It is
Mhm.
my very strong, not, this is not just a belief, this is just true. I'm sorry, I'm going to say it as truth. If we didn't, as human beings, connect some of the time with our inherent vitality, we would not survive. And even as horrible as some of the people we see and cruelty we see people do to each other, somewhere in their world, they're touched by a puppy. They're touched by a child. They're touched by a shooting star. Somewhere they're touched by something that is the eminence of inherent vitality. I firmly believe if we're not, we'd be literally dead. So
Mhm.
I think there is a huge flip in, it's not just trusting, in knowing that this inherent vitality is there no matter how gray the day is, no matter how long the week is gray. And one of the things people talk a lot about gratitude practice. And I'm going to give you a radical outlook that people may object to, but here it comes. I think when we sit down to do gratitude practice and we say, well, this should be this and this should be that, and I know I should feel this and I know I should feel that, I call that should practice, not gratitude practice. I think it's another way to sit on ourselves. To me, real gratitude practice is when you stop at the end of the day and you ask yourself, where was I touched today? You're not trying to make anything happen or feel anything that wasn't there. Where was I touched? And maybe it was happy and maybe it was incredibly sad. It doesn't matter. You were touched, and that's your inherent vitality.
Mhm.
And it might be the blue sky, it might be something just amazingly sad. I don't know. You know, whatever it was. It
Mhm.
might be something small, sad. My dog stepped on a Russian olive thorn. They're about that big, and he has a big hole in his foot. Just that sadness, that I could feel the sadness for that. So that's going to arise all the time, everywhere. And the commitment to noticing it and anchoring on it, to me, that's what
Mhm.
gratitude practice is.
Yeah, and for me as a somatic therapist, what I love about and a shamanic practitioner, what I love about these teachings and what you're speaking to is there's a way that we're trying to get ourselves into certain states from the mind down, right? And what I love about this, I've been on my own personal journey of how do I live from the body up, right?
Right.
The actual felt sense of life, and letting that inform, what I see and what I think and what I love about Anki and this teaching is starting to understand that's really what we're wanting to anchor for kiddos as they grow is more of this felt sense up. What am I actually feeling? What's the experience in this moment? Not this is what your experience should be, but what is the experience that's moving
Actually
through me?
there.
Yeah. So that we're actually in intimacy with life. Like that's what I hear you describing. That's where the
Exactly.
intimacy is. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. And it does. So if we expand from, sorry, actually, let's focus a little bit more on the adult because it does take a commitment. I have not, in my more than 50 years at this, I have not found it possible in myself or others without some kind of practice That's that's not about other states. It's not even about grounding. It's just about being where you are. The notion of doing a practice, a meditation, a movement, whatever it is, doing a practice to be where you are is already connected to inherent vitality. It's already saying, I believe it's there. I know it's there. And if I can just be in myself, be still. There's a wonderful song by a young man. He's popular now. He was in, I believe, I'm going to say Sudan, but I'm not sure that's true, but in one of the really horrible civil wars. And he was adopted by a family over here. And he sings about what is connection when you're bringing all of these worlds together. He has a line in one of his songs. I'm going to try to get it right. There's a place on the hill, a place only silence can fill. And I just love that line. So there is a place in us that only by stopping, boom, we can't touch that outside that. And to bring this kind of work to the children, that has to be our compass. If what they accomplish or someone's idea or who likes what or I want this, if any of those become our compass, we just left that allegiance to inherent vitality. So this is where you had asked me about harmonic resonance.
Mm-hmm.
Harmonic resonance is the ability to be present with someone else and feel what's going on, not change it. It's a little bit different from, oh, you're going to have to help me with the word.
Co-regulation.
Thank you. It's a little bit different from co-regulation, which is very important too and can come out of this. But recognizing the separateness really matters. So it's very easy for people in co-regulation to try to ground themselves so they fix other. So that's already based on not accepting other. If you don't accept where someone is first, you just cut your access to inherent vitality. Mm-hmm. So we say first the adults have to just keep coming back to the sensations, the bodily sensations, and from that the emotions that are the experience of connecting to inherent vitality. And then you will recognize it in another. And you'll see the child who's really disconnected. But before you rush into co-regulation, you're just going to be present with his disconnect. That's his journey. And somewhere in there, you will find the place that is ready to come back, but may not be fast. You know, there's, and it's hard. You know, I'm a grandmother of 7. I still come up against the place that wants to bring them back before they're ready. And that is so disrespectful. And here I am, you know, all these years later, I still have to bring myself back and say, oh gosh, I fell into disrespect again.
Mm-hmm. Which I just love whenever you name that because it's so humanizing. This is a very human journey. It's not perfection. And what I love about what you're talking about too, and this is where I felt this just refreshing feeling when I discovered Enki, is where it's not about what you're doing as the parent. It's about the state that you are embodying yourself in it. And it's not even about necessarily what you're feeling in the moment, because it's more about, can I be with myself with whatever's here now? And that is the inherent vitality. There's something very freeing about that. You know, for
Very.
me as a mom, like if I'm orienting around, I have to do this and this has to happen and I should feel that's very tight. It's stressful. But the minute I remember, oh yeah, I'm this being in this great web of unfolding, and there's so much bigger than me, you know, and all I can do right now is be here with what's happening inside of myself and feeling it, and what's the best capacity with which I can do that. And then how can I notice my child? How can I just notice him and be in that harmonic resonance? And that there's something so freeing about that.
Yeah, there it's very freeing when you can actually, because it's a trust in the core of what is. So you said several times about, can I just be present with what's happening in me? I'm a longtime Buddhist practitioner, and in Buddhism, the word Maitri means kindness to yourself. And at one point, one of my teachers said, kindness to yourself, being willing to feel what you feel. All the spas in the world, all the time off, all the ice cream, all the whatever it is you do, that's all out there trying to chase something. Just stopping to be willing to feel what you feel. And sometimes that feeling is really bleak, but if you can stay with it, it will open. If you keep trying to fill it up, it will not open. I'd love to say what I'd love to give you the ice cream cure, but it just doesn't work.
Well, and this whole piece too around that really, if we come to the core of what is it, what is at the core, what I'm trying to teach my child, it's actually how to be with what's here. Like
Yeah.
at the end of the day, if they could just know how to be with what's here and move through life from that place, that would give them so much.
And that's the place that I feel, and this is actually something I love. This is where what I would say the sacred and the mundane are inseparable.
Mhm.
Because the journey, the detailed journey to offer and support a world where the children can have those experiences, that takes structure, that takes form. And when you're working with form in order to, it's really an accessing, really an opening a door. It's not even lighting a fire. It's not your fire to light. That fire is already lit in them. It's just opening whatever's sitting on it. That's what Enki is about. Um, and there are many parts. We do offer programs and materials and stories and activities, but those you could do Enki and never touch those. Those are there to support your ability to notice, oh, look at that, he's not connected there. Here are some issues I can look at. Ah, oh, look, he's really to notice the child's connection. And it's really in noticing, this is what I love about the little ones. Somebody once asked me if I could only have an impact on what age group would it be. My answer was 0 to 3. I mean, hands down. And they said, you work with, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th graders all the time. No, no question. Those little guys are, because that's where that anchor happens. Also, it's a little bit cheating because their energy is so much there that you get infused. So I do consider that I've sort of cheated my way through life because I've had children in my world all the time. And for them, even all the way older, that connecting is so, it's their nature, it's the blood that flows through them. The only question is, are we going to push it out of the way? Are we going to rush by it? Are we going to accomplish this? And some of that also happens in the difficulties because the difficulty is part of the energy of letting that come through. So can we, a great example of this on a simple level, you guys probably missed it, but there was a whole phase where people said there would be no SIDS deaths if babies were never put on their stomachs. Well, their entire nervous system for the complete existence of man and animal, so forever, depends on the struggles that happen on the belly. That kicks in all kinds of nervous system reflexes, everything. So they came up with this idea, and I turned to my colleagues and I said, so everybody should be ready to do sensory integration work in about 3 years because we're going to have a whole batch of kids. So we took them out of the struggle to theoretically be kind, but it wasn't kind. So the struggle is part of accessing that empowered inherent vitality.
Can you speak a little more to the sacred and the mundane that you spoke to there and just map that out a little bit? Because this also, I think, fits very strongly with with sacred relationship and with parenting, the sacred and the mundane.
I'm willing to bet because your audience is mostly parents, right?
Parents or people that are healing their childhood stuff because they're in
Okay, that'll
relationship
be
and all their childhood stuff is
good.
coming up.
Thumbs up. Forever. Don't think that's going to end.
Yeah.
Just how soon can we notice it?
Yeah.
Well, the reason I asked about parents is I think it's pretty darn hard to have a baby and somewhere in that first year to two, not have a moment where it's a diaper, it's the child stands up for the first time and you know you are in the presence of the divine. Well, you know what? Almost every child on this earth has stood up. So it's not because they're so special and unique and blah, blah, blah. You are in the presence where the sacred beingness is inseparable from what's happening. So when you turn your focus that way, then suddenly how they do math becomes about where is this about the relationship and the connection to being human from the youngest ages. Um, just trying to think of an example from a really little guy. Well, what's coming to me is one of my grandchildren here, when he was about 2, we went out to eat, and he immediately took, at a breakfast place, you know, those all like stacks of little tiny jellies and butter. So he immediately took all of them out, and I knew that the people around us would be freaking out. But I could see what was happening. He was exploring the world, the sacred, what are these? And he made a whole series of different patterns with these different jellies. And I just let him. I was just quiet. And it's in those places that is totally mundane. And if I had jumped in the middle and said, yes, look at that pattern, jelly, jelly, butter, jelly, jelly, butter. We've got a 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 1, 3 in each one, 3, 6, 9, right? Supposedly that is an example of seizing a teaching moment. We consider that an example of laying your trip on your child. Trying to make something that isn't. If what we're trying to take hold of in each teaching moment is the presence with awe, the presence with wonder, then the jellies become a sacred moment. Does that help there?
So good. And I know for me, I had been embodying that lots and being in that and still noticing it's wild the strength of even just the collective energy, right? Of as a mama, where you think you need to teach them something or come in and guide something or make it a teaching moment. And your voice comes in now for me. And I just notice that, right? And pause. And what happens if we just hang out here and there is no teaching moment and we're just noticing it together? And that's it.
That is the teaching moment.
That's right. That's right.
You're teaching being present with that awe.
Yeah, the awe.
And it is huge. Our culture is going so fast to accomplish something to make ourselves safe. And we just look around us to see how well that's working.
Mhm.
So if our anchor can be in stepping into the awe with them, that's where the sacred and the mundane come together. And as they
Mhm.
get older, it is a little trickier because there's much more content. But one of the great thrills for me in working in education was discovering that all those things we learned, all that math, all that science, at its heart, it actually is awe filled. And if you start, like in our ecosystem that we work with in our web, one of the central pieces is called essential energy. And that's about seeing where is this an awe filled expression of life in and of itself. So when you then develop teaching of math or science or grammar out coming from the question of where is this already awesome, then the sacred and the mundane are already together.
Mhm. I know. Oh, so good. This brings me into this piece that I really wanted to dive into. What I was really excited about with Enki is Beth has really studied somatic experiencing and different somatics and neurosensory integration. And it was really it's woven through Enki. And one of the things that I loved that I'd love for you to speak to a little bit is this place where what you were realizing is that this is my own words, and then I want to hear how you say this, but that there's much around sort of containing the vitality or the energy of a child to, into a calmness, into a containment. And one of the things I love that you were speaking to is how there was a realization of a lot of the most amazing beings on the planet that have done amazing things. It's because they had this core vitality that was standing up for something or pushing against something, taking a stand against maybe what the mainstream would see or say. And what I understand is this was a core piece of what made you want to create a new kind of schooling. And I'd love for you to speak to that a little bit.
That's interesting. I haven't thought about it that way. I'm going to have to think that through.
Mm,
Um, I think what I would say, this is a really good question, Courtney, because I think I've come at it differently, but I think you've touched on something very real. And I want to take a moment and just think about where did that. I think you got two pieces in there. One is this need to contain the children and make things safe for you. It's completely unsafe for them because we're throwing away the energy that is them. So one of the images that struck me early on is if you look at the graph of a heartbeat, it's not flatline. Flatline, everybody's got everything the same under control, but that's death. So I never found the death part real appealing. For me, and again, this part I don't know why, I have always really delighted in those balls of fire. I've had to work harder in my own teaching career and even parenting I have 3 children, they're very different. It's easy for me to feel the access to inherent vitality in a bubbly, naughty, all over the place, whatever it is, person. That comes easily for me. The child who's so pent up and can't budge, I have to work harder, but that's my job. And that's where we come back to as parents and teachers. Our job is to open to that inherent vitality no matter how it's showing. So that left me in a place where, I'll just give a couple examples. In Enki, when we do movement work, we try to be sure we're sometimes the fierce lion or the hungry snake, and sometimes we're a tiny little flower, so that everybody is feeling and moving through this range of emotion and energetics, and the world becomes a much more open place for them. And then that's going to come also in story, and you were actually bringing up the 2nd grade stories, where we're really focusing on what my father would have called the piss and vinegar child. That's probably impolite, but the child we could also say baking soda and vinegar, the child who's just
the spicy one. We
the
like to say
spicy one.
spicy.
Thank you. That's so much more polite. The spicy ones who most schooling, most parenting, you want to squish them, get them to behave. And our focus is on where is that energy, the connection to life, and how can we help it steer in a positive way? And watching out that we don't slide into our version of positive. What is their positive? So we talk a lot in Enki about co-emergence, and this is actually one of the I feel greatest gifts that I've gotten from Buddhism, where I could give you 90,000 million gifts. This is one of the, life is co-emergent. You don't have hot without cold. You don't have light without dark. Life, that is the nature of life. And we get in really big trouble when we try to make it this one thing. So can we totally delight in that child's, whatever his goofies are, and also see and guide where is the positive here from his stance, not from our stance. So that's part of coming back to the issue of harmonic resonance and where it's different from co-regulation. If I'm here in harmonic resonance, I get to feel his world. I'm not asking him to come to mine. I'm going to get to feel his world. And then from that anchor in my own well-being, my own inherent vitality, I'm going to start perceiving, oh, these places are actually not serving him. This is actually destructive for him. And that's when the co regulation can come in because I'm regulating based on his needs, not mine.
Mhm. Yeah, that real ability to feel and discern what's happening for me, what's happening for them, having the spaciousness to feel through that before acting, right? To really take in, yeah. And yeah, that's beautiful.
Well, just one
Um,
thing I want to add on that part that you just said is that,
yeah.
sorry, my leg hurts. One, one thing I want to add on there is that the we're all going to fall down. So I've been at this a very, very long time with the awareness of wanting to do this. It doesn't mean there aren't times I just clamp on the kids because of my own fear. The difference is I will note it doesn't feel good. So instead of it feeling good to get them in control, it feels really awful. And then I can come back to myself and realign myself and sometimes say to them, "Ooh, I am a grump today. Let's go play." Just own it, out we go. The speed with which we're able to recognize and also the not confusing it with our value. I'm not a bad person because such and such sets me off. I'm a human being. But can I catch it before it becomes blame? Can I, even to myself, can I just catch it as, whoa, I'm on my trigger. I need space to breathe. They can play. Who cares? Go play. you know? Um,
Mhm.
so a lot has to do with being willing to sit still with our own falls and not
Yeah.
mistake them for failing, but no, we fell down. Ring around the rosy. We all fall down. When we do that, we free the kids from carrying that burden. That's really all we can do.
And also teach them how to be with the falls, right? Like we're
Absolutely.
embodying this is how we be with falls and that falls are normal and it's a part of and this is how we move in it.
And
Mhm.
most people want to tell them that and make them
Mhm.
recite that. And all that does, because of the way their nervous system is built, all that does is cause fear. And now we got little soldiers who can say, "I'm feeling good. I felt bad." That's not about feeling. Feeling has to happen from what's there.
Yeah, well, and this is one of the things that I was so excited about with Enki is how it really understands the body up perspective that we feel we actually develop from the body up. And, in our culture, there is such, as a mom that's in it right now, there's such a rushing river of wanting everything to happen so much faster than it just actually will emerge, like there's just a place where these things will just start to emerge in them because they're developmentally ready. And there is such a raging river that wants them to get there faster or puts pressure on parents. And I don't even take in any of that on the outside. And yet I still feel that rushing river on the inside because it's so strong.
And you were raised in it. So
Yes,
you have
that's
to
right.
remember your own and what we think. So the mind can take in information and understanding very, very fast. The body takes it in very, very slowly. So that makes people want to race to make the kids understand, race to tell them how to be kind. Kindness comes from being integrated in your own body and heart. And if we rip them out of their body in order to have them understand, be kind, that was unkind right off.
Mhm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
yes, it
yeah.
is much slower.
Yeah. Well, and even, and that's where this inner practice comes from, like I've had so many moments with my son of he's like killing something, you know, destroying something, and then working with the feelings because, okay, this is part of him learning about his relationship with the world. This is part of it, right? This is part of and I could rush in and tell him, but how do I be with him in this moment? Where we're exploring. How do we be in this and feel through it together? And that requires me to breathe with whatever that brings up in me.
And that's the big thing. It really is the breathing.
Mhm.
I'll give you a couple stories on that. Um, I don't know how many years ago, a long time ago, I was teaching a kindergarten, and my dog. It was in the lower level of my house, and so the kids got very attached to my dog. And my dog was 13, and he was dying, and I knew it. And I thought it might be the day they were coming to school. So, first thing I did was I called all their parents and said, I'd like you to tell your child this is a big deal. It should come from the parent, not from the teacher. So they had all been prepared. They came to school. They right away wanted to build him a funeral world with flowers and rocks and sticks. So we spent the whole morning building him this beautiful world, like probably an hour and a half. I'm thinking, oh, they're so wonderful, so much compassion. They love him so much, blah, 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 which was all true. But I was fully fixated on that. We come in, we have our snack, and now they're doing their creative playtime. They build a killing machine. They take my beautiful, huge wooden logs that are just nature and holes. They build a catapult and take the wooden dolls, so carefully carved, perfect wooden dolls, and catapult them into the death swamp that they've built out of silks. Right? So my silks are death swamp. My beautiful log is a catapult to kill them, and they're all dying. So I had all those same feelings that everybody has. Oh my God, what's wrong with these children? I've got to fix it. Maybe I can change all those feelings. But I had been at teaching long enough to know that anytime you feel that way, sit still and do nothing. So I just sat still. Eventually, I had breathed my way through it, and I was actually listening to them instead of listening to my own freakout. And what I heard and saw is death just came knocking at their door. They want control over it. And from that place of truly accepting them, just what we've been talking about, I could come to them with a compassion. And all I did was ask if I could have a turn. I didn't ask them to change anything. I asked if I could have a turn. In so doing, telling them what they were feeling was fine. I did it. They did a couple more times and they were done. And then they still were really sad about the dog and made pictures of the dog. But they needed that moment. And I had to absolutely, and I'm more than 50 years at this. I'm thinking I'm like 58 years, but we're going to have to count it up at some point. I still have those moments with children, with my grandchildren, with children I'm with. Up comes my fear and my agenda. And can I hold still long enough to be present with what's here?
Mhm. Oh, I always get so many chills when you're telling the stories. Like it's so powerful to feel how you've lived it and have these stories. It really helps it land in the body. And so there was another question I wanted to dive into that's sort of on this vein of the rushing river and the wanting to go so fast. And I want to talk a bit about the mama battery.
uh,
And this comes up in my world supporting mamas who are trying to figure out right now, there's this real movement of women having their own businesses, which gives them freedom. Not everybody, but can give them freedom to be able to be with their children, but then also work. And it feels like right now women are really trying to figure that out, that dance of what does it look like to actually be a present mama and be giving your child what they need in attachment and not just leaving them. Um, but then also still doing your dharma, your creativity. And this is something we're trying to work out and figure out. And I feel as though a big chunk of what is missing in some of this discourse is an understanding of what's actually wired in children in their attachment system. That this isn't just, I decide that you're okay. you
Good
know,
luck.
yeah, and now I'm going to go, because I feel good and I feel like we're ready and it feels like it's time for our family. And more, I would love for you to speak to the actual physiology, the actual capacity children have for, and I love this metaphor of the mama battery, of how long they can actually be away from mama, depending on where they are developmentally.
Great. I'm going to have a drink, so I took a moment to breathe.
Yes. Be in our bodies, meet our needs. Yeah.
this is a total aside because clip this out. I have to say something.
Okay.
um,
Yeah, yeah.
when you see the videos for your grade level stuff, all of those have been heavily edited. And in the middle of them, I'm saying, okay, Tegan, I'm telling a private story. Okay, I made
Right.
a joke that's inappropriate.
Okay.
Okay. So expect that.
Okay.
Okay. So the whole notion of the mama battery, I'm actually going to start by saying it's not a metaphor. It
Mm.
is. It is actually an energy center. So I think one of the big misnomers in this world is people think about children ready to leave their mother or their father. They're never ready. It's how much have they internalized. So that's the mama battery, the internalized sense of mama safety. We're going to call it mama. Sometimes it's papa. Um, it's largely limited to those two. Sometimes grandma's in the house fully and a shift happens, but it's the primary bond. And that has to be internalized. It's not that they've gotten strong and brave. And if you're in strong and brave, you left the mama battery. It's, is it deeply inside them? And on the whole, so I also, here's a correction for you. This can I work and be a full mama? This dates back to Betty Friedan, who was a family friend of ours, Feminine Mystique. So my generation was actually the first generation that battled this every which way. I
Mhm.
was really lucky because my creative pursuit is children. So I always felt again like I cheated. But this is at 75, I'm looking back at the places I cheated my way through life. Children and children and children. Um, so it's very real because we do need to nourish ourselves and be connected, be doing the things that connect us to life. But I think that gets very confused with value, with people thinking their value comes by pursuing their art, by having a business. This is not about value, right? Your value comes from one place. It's there whether you touch it or not. It is inherent vitality, period. So, although this may not be popular, I do want to start by saying you have a tiny window where the children are really young. It feels like forever when you're living it. It is the longest short period of time that exists. Well, pregnancy is even worse, but next to pregnancy, those first 3 years, they're so short. So I do think there are going to be people who absolutely have to work to survive. We have to respect that, and I'll give you a story about that. There are going to be people who have to do their art because without it, they lose that access. Got to respect that. But people who feel that they have to go back to work because their value depends on it, and if they let go for a minute, they're going to have no place in this world. I'm going to ask you to think about if that's what you want to teach your child, because that is what you're teaching them. So step one for me too is encourage people not to go back to work, or if you're doing something you can do in little bits, great. And then there are more ways to support the development of the battery, and we can talk about them in a minute. It's very hard because I don't like to upset people. I don't want
Mhm.
people to feel that I'm saying they're wrong. But the truth
Yeah.
is, this is a little being who's on a developmental timetable. It's a very short window. 0 to 3 is the big window where being, even if it's being in a home with grandma versus mom has to go to work, that's a whole lot better than being in a daycare.
Mhm.
So, what can we do? So that my anchor is if there's any way for you to stay home, that is the greatest value.
Mhm.
And find within that where, like I can tell you, when I was a mother of young children, I had to have a half a day every week away from everybody, or I lost my friggin' mind. And then I was of no use to nobody. So we built our lives so that whatever it was, Sunday morning, I think, I went off, sometimes with a friend, often alone, sometimes to a meditation practice. but I could not be interrupted. Nobody. So I think look for those places, but really ask the question of, am I pursuing something because I believe my value depends on it, or I'm going to lose it if the 3 years I'm here? Or is this really something I need?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, in terms of the little people, trying to think of the best place to go here, simple level, they depend on their primary bond to form a stable nervous system. So we look at it as a lemniscate or figure eight. They have their nervous system, they have their bond, and it keeps doing this. So if their bond is threatened, their nervous system is on alarm. Then their bond is weakened, then their nervous system is more on alarm. And it just keeps doing that. If you're with them and the bond is, you feel, should be solid, but their nervous system is on fire for some other reason, my middle child, it was dairy products, he could not fully bond because his nervous system was on alarm, so he could never feel that. What he could feel was that I was present for his struggle. So when we finally got him off dairy and the fire dissolved, he knew it was already there. The ground was laid for him to then be on. But this is a lemniscate. It doesn't stop.
Mhm.
Integrate, nervous system integration, bonding, nervous system, it's inseparable. In those first 3 years, it takes the primary parent to be the other half of the bond, right? But all the while, they're building, their nervous system is building, their ability to integrate is building, their ability to hold the bond within is building.
Yeah. Well, and can I add a little piece here that I think sometimes is confusing for people is how, prior to the age of around 6 or 7, but you can't even say an age because it's dependent on whether we develop it or not, whether it actually evolves at that time. But it comes through proximity, right? So that we're building the battery through proximity. It's not through, well, I'm feeling connected by my child to my child while I'm away. It's not, oh,
No,
my child can
proximity is critical.
it's
Yeah.
proximity, it's eye contact, it's touch, it's being in the same space, and then that fills them up. And yeah, just to speak to this piece, I know whenever I speak to this, I'm always cautious too, because as mamas, we can feel so much shame. Mothers and fathers, we can go into so much shame. And it's not about shaming, but it is about just us educating ourselves because we haven't, so many mamas right now, they don't know. They have no idea because it hasn't been taught to them and something else is being normalized. And yet, what I notice is they do know it in their bodies.
Yep.
Something's telling the mama in their body, but they don't know what it is they're feeling, or they are being told. I can't tell you how many times I've had people say things to me, well, if the mother's okay, then the child will be okay you know? And it's I know, and I've just been, whew, I'm glad I know not to listen to that
Yeah, yeah.
because, of course, like, the mother can tell themselves, I'm going off for the day to, just have this time and do whatever fills me up." But that doesn't mean that then the child is not in some sort of distress if they're young and their mama battery's not filled up, and I think there's something powerful about updating and starting to learn. And I know for me with my business, because I did have an understanding of this, although it's been deepening, I was really lucky that I could do a few hours, like work an hour, work 2 hours, and he would be in the home with my friend, and so and sort of building in this way. And I think there are mamas out there that if they knew, if they had this information, they could get creative, you know? And of course, there's going to be mamas where you're not able to do that. But even then, knowing this can also still help you in how you hold your child in the reality if you
Of
do
what
have to
is.
be apart. Yeah.
So I'm going to address the last part first because I think it's really important for people to hold. There are going to be people who have to be away from their child. There are going to be people where there's a death of a parent. These are true things. There are going to be people, for whatever reason, they're not going to be there with their child. The problem, the lifelong problem happens when we pretend it was no big deal. When we can actually be present with what it is, the child can feel their, as long as they're safe, the child can feel their pain and go forward. So, do we want to create that kind of pain for a child? No. Does it happen sometimes? I'm someone who lost my first husband right after our daughter was, she was an infant. That will always be part of her. I can't take that away. But I can either be present with it, or I can in effect shame her and tell her she doesn't count. I mean, that's really your only choices. You don't have much else. So I give you a story on this one. This is from a child who is now, we passed April, so he's 52, so not a child anymore. When he was 2, he was in my little preschool, home preschool. So 5 kids, very small, in my home, baking, cleaning, making a mess, all that stuff. And his mom was a single mom and had to go to work and had to be there at a certain time. We had spent time in the park together. They'd played at my house, getting used to it, but he's only 2. He was really upset. So when it was time for her to leave, I would pick him up. He would sob uncontrollably, and we would stand at the window and say, "Bye-bye, Mama. This is so sad, so hard, so sad." And she would be in tears. And then he could let it go and go on. But when we try to say, "Oh, you're okay," that, like, forget that language. "Oh, you're okay. No big deal. Mama will be back." Blah, blah. All we're telling them is don't be where you are. And then we try in our adulthood to learn to be where we are. If we can trust that they can go through that. And I've had several kids for different reasons who had to be in that kind of pain. I mean, one a little bit older, but her mom died. She had to be in that pain. We're not going to take that away from her. But can we be present with it? Can we actually be a safe container for it? So that has a lot to do with both how you come back to your child and how you receive the anger they often deliver when you come back. The children and the dogs. My dog does it too. And also, who are you leaving them with?
Mm-hmm.
What is the situation? And what is the process? So if we talk about the mama battery, I'm going to use the example you gave. Your child's in your home. That's already part of recharging his battery. He has already extended his you bond to his environment. So just the fact that you're at home means his battery can go a little longer.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that he's with a known person, you said a good friend, a grandma,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever, that's already means his batteries can hold longer. It's not, they're not filling it, but what they're doing is not draining it so fast.
Mm-hmm.
So all of these pieces, a father, a grandparent, a sibling, a friend, who the child knows, his battery charge will hold longer. And I'm sorry, but to me, it's totally literal. Like when I look at them, I see that battery drain out. And when they come to the end of that drain, they are at the end of that drain.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing
Mm-hmm.
you can do but be present with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a friend who has worked in lots of daycares, and she says, like working with the 3, 4-year-olds, and she said around hour 4, like clockwork, is when all the little ones start looking for their mamas. That's when they start looking for
People
them.
think
They
it's
start crying
because
for
they're
them.
tired. I'm willing to bet, even if she watched closely, it's actually hour 3
Mm-hmm.
that it starts going.
Uh-huh.
And they are all looking. And so by hour 4, they're like panicky looking. Um, and it is like clockwork when you're willing to pay attention to it. It's just how it is.
Mm-hmm.
So one part is, where am I leaving my child? And the more simple the environment, the more it not is home-like, but is a real home. Somebody's home. If it can't be yours, somebody's home. A
Mm-hmm.
home has energy in it that you cannot recreate. And I have tried. I've had really successful preschools because I tried. They were never the same as a home.
Mm-hmm.
A home where you're cooking, where you're cleaning, where they're playing with pots and pans, where they're in the sand, where you tell a story. Okay, that was a good day.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's it. I mean, that's where the sacred is. There's nobody who has a toddler who hasn't seen the pans all over the floor. And the more you can just know that is an expression of the mundane within the sacred, then it's wonderful. So huge is, where are you leaving them? With whom are you leaving them? And how, like, people, this was from my day too, people love to say, oh, we have a 3-to-1 ratio. We have 30 children and 10 teachers in one space. And you also have an insane asylum. Um, they need this whole space. So a home setting where they have 3, 4, 5 kids is so much better than your fancy tools and your learning this and your poopy snoopy over there
Mhm.
in the school. And I
Mhm.
tried really hard, and I actually had to leave a school I started because I realized you can't create home like, they're not stupid. They know they're not in a home.
Yeah. And so could you speak a little bit to how what it looks like to transition little ones into care or into school in a way that is in alignment with their attachment with their and the reason I feel really passionate about this is I've been discovering that there are so many parents out there, so many mamas I've ran into that talk about this experience of, you know, going to take their children to maybe it's like daycare or to their first experience of kindergarten, let's say, and their child getting really upset, the mother feeling like, "Oh, maybe they're not ready," some uncertainty, this kind of thing. Them being told by the school, you know, "This is how it needs to be. They're gonna cry, they're gonna be upset, you just need to go." And yeah, I know, and the mamas, I can't tell you how many mamas I've ran into, they're like, "I felt terrible and I left and I," but apparently that's just how it needs to be, and, you know, the attachment therapist in me is like, "Oh, no. This is not oh, no," and so
Well, the
wanting to
attachment
just
therapist in you will love the fact that, I don't know if it's still true, but there was a period where what the teachers were saying, oh, he had such a good day. He cried when you left, but then he threw up and then he was fine.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm like crawling the walls.
Yeah.
So if your child is throwing up, that is way, nervous system way beyond where it can go. So, what I would say is slowly, and I'm going to give you an example, and it is going to be different for different children, but that's where our job to actually read them comes. My youngest grandson had a crisis birth and had to be in the hospital for 2 weeks. So, that's always going to strain the bond no matter what you do. So,
Mhm.
that's his journey, though we have to trust his journey. But we also have to be alert to that his separation is going to be different. So, second is that he was born into COVID. So, the only people he saw at the beginning were his brothers, his mother, his father, and me. So, he had this very safe world, and his whole bonding thing was very tight. I will say, on the humor end, the first time he saw another small child, he screamed and ran away. He'd never seen it. He only knew big brothers and adults. It was very funny. But so he was with me until for like preschool time until he was, okay, I got to get it, 4.5. And then we wanted him to go to a little home group just a couple days a week, largely because I was homeschooling his big brothers and I was getting too tired because reality is I'm in my 70s and homeschooling 2 kids and also a little one. I needed something to help hold him. So I said at the beginning, we'll start with the big boys later so that I can transition him in. I could only find one program in all of our town, Reno. There are almost 500,000 people in this town. One program that would let me do it slowly. That was end of line for me. If they're going to say he'll cry and you
Mhm.
have to go, no dice. I took him and I stayed with him the whole time for about 2 weeks. Most of it I was just sitting in a corner, but he would look and he knew I was there and each thing. And when they would try to have me go in the first couple weeks, his whole body went into crisis. And I said, okay, so we'll be staying. At week 3, when I said, I'm just going to go for about 10 minutes. I'm going right over there to pick up some, fruit, and I'll be right back. He said, no, 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 no. But his body said, I can do it. So instead of, he was, no, no, no. I said, yeah, I'm going to try that. I'll be right back. I was back in 10 minutes with the fruit. So he only had to tiny stretch. So we went one tiny stretch to the next. And we actually made a card that showed the different parts of the day and had a space on it to write where I would go and when I'd be back. We only used it about twice, and then he said, yeah, she's really going to do it. It took a month to fully be there, but then he was fully there. You never would have known nothing. He skipped in. And I didn't know what would happen come kindergarten because he went to public kindergarten. And he went to the door and turned to his mom and dad and said, bye, see you after school. And that was that.
Mhm. Mhm.
It was very slow. And the people at school and his mom and dad got very worried. It was very slow. And if it had meant he wasn't ready to go at all, then we'd try a year later.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, see, and for me as a somatic therapist, how I see this too, right, is when we're transitioning little ones into these places, we're literally laying the groundwork in their body for going out of the nest. And do I feel safe? Do I notice a sense of safety in my body? Do I know, and that being able to go out and stay connected to self and, in that, and then come back, into the attachment safety. And what I see in adults when that hasn't been held well is it can really affect adults. The way it shows up is having a really hard time in their relationships with going apart and coming back together, of knowing how to stay connected in that, right? Or the other way it can show up is not being able to read safety. Because if I don't actually feel safe where I'm being left and my body doesn't feel safe yet, but my mom is leaving me, now I don't know what safety or unsafety is, right? But if I let my mom know in my body, I don't feel safe yet, and she cares about that, that actually is helping me build a sense of, oh, I'll know when I'm in a space that's safe,
Yep,
right? Yeah,
absolutely.
and I just go, "Oh, no." The confusion that then happens for so many adults are so confused and don't know when they feel safe and when they don't feel safe and how they, and so much of it stems to this dance
Yep.
of how were we held as we went out into the world and we came back.
And I think another way that you would also put this is they don't know how to read alarm. So their own body's alarm systems are on all the time.
Yeah.
And then we see the kids with ADHD because they never could let down the alarm. Why would they? It wasn't safe. So this is why I say 0 to 3 would be my time, because that's when the ground is laid. That's when they get to really say, "Here I am." And I think you alluded to this. I alluded to it, but just to nail it down, if your child gets like my grandson, just to say I'm going to walk to the gate and back was bringing this, then I just sit down.
Mhm.
Then finally he's ready for me to walk to the gate and he's saying, no, no, no. Their words don't tell you a whole lot. Look at the body. The body's saying, no, 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 but he's completely relaxed. Okay, but I'm going to sit over there. And I do. And 5 minutes later, I'm back. 5 minutes is a long time to a young child. So any notion that you're going to leave a young child for a 4 to 6 hour day without a huge buildup of process of rhythms that they know. So all those things like known person, known place, small size, slow adjustment, rhythm to the day, all of those, they're almost like a covering on the battery so it doesn't just leak out really fast. It's still the battery. The question is still, can the battery hold that charge? And the charge will be really low by the time you get them from wherever. But is it there, or has it, really, are they really falling apart? And falling apart can also look like behaving perfectly.
Yes.
Watch out for the perfect behaviors. They've given up. They're carrying the
Yeah.
world on their own shoulders.
Yeah. Yeah, and that, and also the push away where they're angry or they won't connect, like the not making eye contact, not coming towards, not showing that, "Mom, you're here," you know? Yeah.
Yep. I have to tell you a side story. This is what my dog does. It upsets me no end. For 3 days after I'm away, he just won't speak
Mhm.
to me. I try to go out of a room and he pushes me back in. He won't let me out the door, but he won't look at me. He won't wag his tail. And then finally he's back. So
Right.
children are just like that.
Yeah.
I want to put a slight caution in here. You keep talking about eye contact. So there's
Mm,
eye contact that's about, look at me, Courtney, look
mhm.
at me. I'm here, you're safe. That is not safe eye contact. There's the eye contact we've been having this whole time. That's just about being present with someone else. So
Mhm.
I think people have been very misled about this eye contact thing. Eye
Mhm.
contact is huge. It takes your whole self grounded. So if your child is running out and not looking at you, don't ask them to look at you. Hold them,
Mm-mm.
run with them,
Mhm.
play with them, and look for that moment when they look at you and it tells you they just aligned.
Yeah. Yeah, it's more that again, that inherent vitality. It's how are you going to be with them so that it inherently emerges. They
Yes,
inherently want to
exactly.
make eye contact. Yeah. Oh, this is all such beautiful, juicy information. I notice it touches on so many different parts of me and makes me feel excited for the journey of motherhood. It makes me feel humbled in the journey of being human. And also it just feels really inspiring, Beth, to have you on and to for everybody to feel this work that you have done in the world, but also I feel in the way you teach and the way you speak. And I wonder if you could share a little bit about, we're going to have links for any of you that are curious. I know that we have listeners that are homeschool parents. I highly, highly recommend the Enki program as a great resource. And so we're going to have links so that you can look up information about Enki. But do you want to speak to any of that, Beth?
Well, I think I just did. um, the one thing, two things I would say. One is we absolutely have a very strong homeschool program, but we also are in schools. We try to keep our schools very small, and they have a lot of space in the day. Um, but Enki is for schools and homeschools, both. The homeschool, well, no, this is true for both, but it's been especially appreciated by homeschoolers. When you uh, purchase an Enki package, no, what do we call them now? Program, you become part of a small community and you have guidance calls and guidance videos. So you get videos with me that I'm not there, but they're recorded videos with me and other people talking about some aspect, integration through movement, let's say. And then that's followed up by a conversation with one of our senior teachers. And that happens 7 times during the year. And those are priceless because that's where it stops turning into dogma and starts being about where is the ideal for me? How is it I'm going to take this information, which is so important, and my reality, which is so important, and find the ideal for me?
Mhm.
So that's a piece of our thing is that it really requires human interaction. So that's built into our program. Um, what was the other part of what you asked me?
Just if there's anything you want to share about how people can connect with you more or find out
Oh,
more about
that was the
Enki.
one other thing. Well, um, Courtney will put up the links to our website,
Mhm.
and there's lots of information and videos and blah 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 blah. But keep an eye out for the what we call them the homeschool teas, TEAS. And what they are is a conversation with, I believe there's 6 homeschoolers on specific topics. These were done many years ago, but they're just as relevant. But so they're people who have been homeschooling with Enki for a while who are sitting down to say, oh, here's how this actually played out for me. And here's where I took something and I made it into dogma. And once I realized, oh, that wasn't the point, what was the meaning underneath that? Everything opened. So they're on there. You can also just Google YouTube Enki Education homeschool teas, and I think you'll find them. But I'm sure they're on the website. And I think for parents, it really helps because it's homeschooling parents talking about what is it, what does it mean.
Yeah, yeah, I know I've found it really helpful to talk to the mamas that I know that are homeschooling and are down the road and the place of feeling them finding it from their own core vitality or their own inherent vitality. So not, okay, mama, now you're going to have to fit yourself in this box. It's going to be really hard. And, it might be stretchy and you're going to have to learn, but how are you moving in it from your own inherent vitality? And that again is settling for my system
Yeah.
that I'm going to be on a journey of finding myself in that. So,
And I'll just end with one of our favorite Enki statements, which is look at the difference between falling and failing. And the word fall has no I in it. You just fell. You can roll with your A's and your L's. Fail is when you add the I in, literally, FAIL. But it's when you add the ego in. My value depends on not making a mistake. Well, if that's the truth, you're in big trouble. So might as well get yourself anchored on falling is what it is to be human. It's the journey. If it ends, it didn't end by 75 for me, so good luck to you. Um, I think it's just the journey. We fall. The question is, can we be present with the pain of that fall and learn from it? Not jump back up and be a tough upper lip, but really allow ourselves to be in the heartbreak and learn from that. And if you can set your sights on that, then you don't have to be quite so, I made a mistake and everything's terrible and blah, 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 blah.
yeah, yeah, thank you for speaking to that. And for the kiddos too. That's what they get to learn through that. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's what we want to teach them. So
Yeah. Thank you so much, Beth, for
you're very
sharing
welcome.
yourself and diving into this. Thanks everyone for listening, and take a look at the show notes if you want to know more about how to connect with Beth or about Mike and I's upcoming offerings. I will be offering a nervous system course that's going to be coming out, parenting the nervous system, and also a little mini course on transitioning your child into care or into school from an attachment and nervous system perspective. So stay tuned for that. And also, if you found this helpful, please do leave a comment, give us a rating, and we'll see you next time.